Welcome to I Just Don't Know, a podcast where we try to learn something new, challenge my opinions, and hope to make the misinformed informed. In this special episode, I'm joined by my friend Lewis as I attempt my first episode with a guest. Exciting times. We start off with Lewis teaching me a thing or two about skating through the streets and parks of London. We then move on to a range of topics including the need for perfection, performing in front of others, being judged, and the fear of failure. Listen and join us as we explore how I might have made some assumptions around these challenges we all face every day. I don't really want to introduce yourself, you know what I mean?
Hi, my name's Lewis.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. It seems a bit cheesy, doesn't it?
But part of me wants to do that. So, for example, like Elizabeth Day, her podcast, she does like this big spiel about, this person's an actor, an author, but they're celebrities though, so she can do that.
Am I not a celebrity, Rob?
you can be a celebrity. When people get to know me, so Kirsty and my family and even friends at uni, they eventually start calling me out when they can see that I'm talking about something I don't know about.
Yeah. But
it seems like I do because of I put it down a little bit down to like the tone of my voice and the way I say it. Maybe just because of the way just how my voice inflects or whatever, or the words I use, the accent. I don't know, but it has definitely caught me out, and as a result, people have gone, they've either believed me, like that is the truth. And do you know, it actually happened today. I asked someone.
He's back at it.
Even though I'm trying to do a podcast to fix it, I asked someone, okay, what's your favourite pizza at Pizza Union? Because they were going to go for lunch, and they were like, and I just went, what is your favourite? Because there's two I really like and one I don't. And then someone in the team went, Rob, is this a test? Did it sound like a test? It's not a test. It's just there is two that I like and one I don't like. It's the one, and she was like, yeah, I like the ham and mushroom one, and I like the pepperoni one. I'm like, good. And the goat cheese one's not very nice. So but then again, I was like, did I really sound like that? I made that a test, and I know they're like junior, so, but
surely if you ask somebody about their favourite pizza, you don't say, I'll give you my top two and my bottom. When you ask about your favourite pizza, it's your top one, isn't it? There's
only 4 or 5 pizzas on the menu, so that's why it's that. But perhaps I framed it wrong by saying there's two I like and one I don't. If you dare get it wrong.
Yeah, flip a coin and we'll see.
When I messaged you, the topic that came to mind first that I wrote down was you started skating in lockdown. Like lots of other people tried to do different things, but you're still doing it. So from my understanding of skating, actually no, tell me why you started it, and then I'll tell you about why I think it's skating.
Why did I start? It's a really boring reason.
Go on.
I wanted to get out of the house.
Okay.
And I tried it when I was younger.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed it and played around a little bit and just thought, do you know what? I have a couple of friends who want to start skating. We all kind of started at the same time. So we're all at the same progression level now, which is really nice. Because I imagine if I did it by myself, with it being it's quite a group activity sport, even though you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
If I didn't have that sort of network to begin with, there's no way I'd be skating now.
So you met someone to go?
Yeah.
Who did you meet?
I had my friend Adam, who I moved down to London with. We've known each other for years, so it was quite nice to start with him.
And you had a skateboard?
I didn't. I actually bought one.
Where from?
Wow. Skate Direct? No, that sounds like Sports Direct. It's a rip-off of Sports Direct. I've just made it up. Skate Deluxe. Yeah, it was. It was a black and white, sort of wavy, trippy pattern on it.
Yeah.
And it quite clearly said Skate Deluxe on it.
And was it expensive, or was there different ranges?
It was maybe £60. I mean, okay,
reasonable.
It's pretty reasonable, but it broke so quickly. Quickly.
What was the top range skateboard? Not like a premium one that's like a collectible, but what was the What could have been the most premium?
I mean,
one
if
you
you're
bought?
buying all the parts individually, you're talking like between 60 and 90 pounds for the wooden deck, the bit that you stand on.
Yeah.
Then you're talking maybe like a £10. Some places give you free grip tape with the deck that you buy, but you could be paying like £10.
What's the
grip tape is like, it's basically sandpaper. It's just sandpaper.
I see. Skating, sandpaper, go.
Grip tape.
Grip
That's
tape.
what we were on about. Yeah,
Grip tape.
it's okay. Right.
Okay.
Yeah, grip tape is essentially
So you bought
sandpaper.
you bought your own one on Skating Deluxe, and you went out with friends, and all that. I want to hear a bit more about that. But my idea of skating, this is where I'm clearly wrong, and I made plenty of some assumptions on what I think skating was, because I cannot skateboard. I don't dare do it. I think I once stood on it when I was a kid and very definitely fell off. I tried it when we were in the park back last year, very hesitantly. I definitely can't skate to the level you, Kirsty, and what probably and Alicia had a go at. I can't do the basics of skating, but my experience of it was growing up doing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater on PlayStation and getting good at that because everyone loved it because it was a very good game. But obviously playing a game is a very different thing. But all the tricks and learning the is it dialogue or the words for all the tricks like kick, flip, and they're similar to skiing slightly, but not quite. So that was all my experience. But I thought it was a little bit like skiing, which I can do with the sort of the gliding and the balance. So the more you do it, the better you get. But I don't think it is. It seems to be a lot harder because you have to propel yourself rather than using gravity. So,
well, actually, that's a good way of looking at it.
My version of skating is that I can pretend to know about it, but I don't have a clue what they're actually doing. So tell me about your first 6 weeks of skating, and where you'll build up to your first trick, and what was it?
Oh wow, okay. My first ever experience of standing on a skateboard.
Because that's what I can't.
As an adult.
Yeah.
I just got to reiterate this, as an adult.
As an adult, yeah.
Because as a kid, you're a fearless kid. You're like, oh, I'll try anything, or at least most kids are. I was a little bit. I think I've really tamed into adulthood, and I kind of stepped onto a skateboard, being like, I'm just gonna give it a go. Let's just stand on my mate's skateboard. And it's quite a funny story actually. I stood on it, pushed myself very, very gently, and tried to get my back foot on. I fell. I mean, as everyone does when they first try. I fell straight on my backside, and the skateboard flew off and hit this poor lady, and she started yelling at me, and I was like, that's it, I'm never going to get on it again.
Falling that distance hurts. Why would anyone do it?
It's really surprising how falling, I mean, what's that, 4 or 5 inches off of the ground when you've got wheels underneath you hurts.
Well, you're falling more than that. You're falling from your top of your legs downwards. That's like,
oh yeah, but if you just
yeah.
if you just let your legs collapse, you're going to be fine. But because you're stood on this piece of wood, it's essentially just a plank of wood on top of some wheels. You fall off of that, you don't know which direction it's going to go, because you've got to learn how to balance on it.
Okay, so you got through the first initial stages. You fell over how many times in your first?
I'm gonna be honest. I couldn't tell you how many times I fell off.
Madness. Okay, not for me. But then what? How did it click?
I don't think it necessarily. I think with some sports you go, oh, I'm good at this. And then you're like, right, okay, I'm going to carry on. I think for me personally, with skating, I was just carrying on because everyone else around me was.
Yeah.
And if I didn't keep up, I would lose a bit of face. And I know I have this attitude of you shouldn't really care what other
group
people
mentality,
think, but
yeah.
it's the group mentality. That's what keeps you going. That's why it's really good to skate with other people, because there will always be someone better than you. And when you're around them, you're like, I've got to really up my game, because if I don't, I'm gonna fall behind.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a word for that, or there's definitely psychologists have looked into that. The conformity, trying to fit in. It's the desire to fit in a little bit, isn't it? And I think the closest I can relate to that is skiing. When you're skiing in a group and how good people are, they're going quicker, it makes you go quicker, and you try to keep up, and then you push yourself, maybe fall over, and it's like the pressure, like, oh God, they're so quick, I need to catch up. Or they take a route that looks quite off-piste, it's a bit dangerous, so you try to do the same, and you end up hurting yourself, or it's difficult. But then in opposite, they're slow, and you have to like sort of take the pace. It's being part of that group, and that sets the tone. So if you get yourself in the wrong group, you're in trouble. It's obviously different because you're traveling distance in skiing, but is skating, if you go to certain parks, is it more intimidating than other parks, surely?
Oh, hell yeah.
So which parts did you go to in London?
So I live in East London, and when I started skating, I was living in East London, and I only went to a basketball court because it was smooth ground.
Yeah.
Or at least I thought it was smooth ground.
What about all the
then.
basketball players? What were they here?
Well, I mean,
who's this crazy guy?
Funny enough, they actually, because of the pandemic, they'd taken away the hoops from the court. So
that's crazy.
Yeah, I guess I kind of picked the right sport, really.
UK dictatorship at the time.
Yeah. And then I just started skating on what I thought was smooth ground at first. And I was like, oh, okay, kind of get to grips with it. Then I got to a point where I could kind of push myself along and then get my back foot on and turn. Turning was so hard.
So how do you turn in general?
It's a bit like snowboarding.
Okay.
So have you ever been snowboarding?
No, I haven't done snowboarding. This is perhaps, where I, again, call out my assumption. I can ski, which people say it's like snowboarding, but it's not. If it's like snowboarding and snowboarding's like skiing, basically I sort of know skating because I can ski, and that's me being me again, chatting absolute rubbish. But if you say it's like snowboarding, you've got to lean backwards.
There's right? there's a link there. I mean, in skiing, I assume, because I don't know, you
pressure.
It's like pressure on.
If you want to go left, you put pressure on your right foot. If you want to go right,
okay, well in that case it's completely different. See, this is where the assumptions come in. It's like the way the wheels turn underneath your feet is you lean backwards in order to, it depends which way you skate actually. You turn backwards for the wheels to turn towards you.
Yeah. And
you lean forward for them to turn away from you. So if you're standing with your left shoulder
leading,
then you would lean backwards to turn left and lean forwards to turn right. It gets very confusing very quickly.
Sort of, and you're sort of pushing on your left foot to go right because you're trying to push the.
Well, if your left shoulder's leading, you'd be pushing with your right foot.
To go
because your left foot would be at the front.
Yeah, the front.
Of the skateboard.
You don't push on your left foot to go right.
No, you don't push with any of your feet.
You don't push any of your feet. So that's where it's completely different. And
exactly.
I didn't know that. Yeah. So that's where I probably go wrong. I try to change the pressure of my feet, and then it goes.
You change the pressure in both of your feet. So you basically have your weight either on your heels or on your toes.
Yeah. So that's where it starts snowboarding. The edges and the back. Yeah. I see. Okay. So your first trick. What was your first trick? Kickflip.
Oh God.
Ollie.
Yeah.
Do you have ollies?
I can ollie. It wasn't my first trick. Though.
Is on ollie like just grabbing the board? No.
No, an ollie is basically a bunny hop.
Okay.
So
I always thought it was grabbing a board.
No,
I think SSX tricky days.
See, even I don't fully understand what tricks there are, but I think that's what's called a boneless.
Okay.
It's they've got ridiculous names because the people who created these tricks, like I'm trying to think of one. I think an ollie was created by somebody called Ollie.
Yeah.
And everybody just coined it as an ollie because he was the only guy that really knew how to do it, and then people started learning how to do it, and it just stuck. There are other tricks that kind of have similar connotations. But my first trick, what was my first trick? It might have been an ollie. It must have been an ollie. But I think you can't really do any other tricks before you learn that.
Until you do how to jump, basically.
Yeah, it's how to jump.
And the jumping is... Do you remember the first time you tried it?
I have a video on my old phone of like the first time I ever properly managed it. And looking back on it now, it's hilarious because my form's all off. I'm not even moving. I'm doing it stood still. Yeah. And I'm doing it on grass.
So it's easy to fall down.
Yeah, so if I fall, it's fine. It's also, my board isn't going to go anywhere. So realistically, it wasn't my first ollie. Like, I like to tell people it is.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
No, it's... okay, so what was motivating you every time you fell over? What kept you getting back up and trying again, and then to obviously get you to this point where you can try different things, and you go skating occasionally, like once a week or once every few weeks now, maybe more, especially in the lockdowns you're going quite a lot. What if you fall over, you graze your elbow, you hurt yourself? What kept on getting you up, apart from just getting out of the house, which was your original motivation? What kept you going?
The social
side.
I mean, you've probably had it from like other things. I'm not sure. We haven't really spoken about what each other did during lockdown, but I'm sure you probably had a similar thing where whatever it was that you were doing was some form of socializing
in the most legal way possible.
In the most legal way possible, of course. We're not advocating that anyone does anything illegal. But
so the social side, and so there was like a big group. Did you meet people there that you've not really seen since?
The people that I've skated with from the beginning, I'm still friends with them. I still skate with them. Yeah, like they're I'm sorry if they're listening, but I probably wouldn't be friends with them still had we not kept skating together. Yeah, and it was kind of a nice thing of. It was something we could do socially distanced. Yeah. And it kind of went from there. I think if the pandemic hadn't have happened, I probably wouldn't have been skating. I wouldn't have had this social to go alongside of it, and that wouldn't have kept me motivated to keep doing it. Yeah.
So we don't have to do what ifs. What if the pandemic didn't happen? That's one. It's too big to
way too big of a question.
Don't need to comprehend that. There's no point living in what ifs. But the social side. So that means you need a bit of social in your life. But then there was nothing to do with the skating, like getting good or achieving a certain number a certain skill level, or is that not how you motivate yourself?
You're right. There's definitely this sort of UVU mentality. Yeah. Like you're only as good as you tell yourself you are. Like if you believe you're really bad at something, you're probably going to be bad at it. But if you have this sort of like positive mentality, like, oh, okay, I've fallen off, but if I try it again, maybe it'll be different. Or it's this, it's really, really enjoyable seeing that everybody else can do something. So say, for example, like everybody else can ollie. Yeah. And you're seeing everyone do it and you're like, I can't wait till I can do it. And then when you're able to do it, you have this sort of like massive endorphin rush. And you're like, wow, all that time I spent falling over is completely worth it because I've managed to do it now. And I can now kind of show it off to people. And I know.
Oh, so it's showing off.
It wasn't showing off.
So that gets that. I don't know. We're not. We're going to stop that because showing off. What what you like to show off. Lots of people like to show off.
Everyone
Some
likes
people-
to show off.
That's not necessarily, but I think I like to show off because you want that praise that often I think comes from, generally, if you get praise from your parents and your close friends when you're growing up,
Yeah.
you get bred into an area where praise equals you're doing something right, keep going.
Yeah.
Get praise, you're doing something right. And you see it in workplaces now. When in London, I saw it at uni. But that means for those people who fail, you've done something wrong. And the whole idea and the general understanding now that it is actually okay to fail, and it's not all about getting praise, because some people do things to get it right, but they do it in an unethical way, or they do it in a way that's actually fake or whatever. Part of the bigger thing, but showing off plays a big part in everyone's life. This is you showing off in skateboarding, but where's that come from? Why do you like to show off? Because I said I like to show off because it says you get praise, and therefore it says you're doing something right.
Yeah, I think it's it is like a creative outlet. I think everybody has some sort of creative outlet, no matter what it is. Like some people do pottery, some people sing to themselves in the shower. Like everyone has like this sort of like creative urge to some degree.
I get that.
And with skating, it's very much you kind of create your own style when you're skating.
Okay.
Like some people only do like flat ground skating, which is essentially like doing tricks on, you guessed it, flat ground.
Yeah, we're going like really quick or something.
Yeah, like really quick, or some people might be really slow and they might step off the board and do something fancy like that. It's the tricks that you learn, you can kind of put together in a sort of like choreographed dance in a way.
Okay.
And it's this sort of like,
She like dancing.
I love dancing. You know I love dancing, Rob.
Okay, yeah, yeah, and yeah, lots of people like dancing. But okay, so you're comparing it a little bit. Before, sorry to interrupt. It's like a performance in a routine, Strictly Come Skating, basically. Tell me more.
I wish that was a thing. That would be really cool. It's exactly how you say. I think it is a bit of a performance, and when the performance goes well, I mean, Strictly Come Dancing, for example, you see people when they do really well, and they get the applause, and like, even if they're not getting an applause, and they know they've done really well for themselves, it's such a good feeling.
Yeah.
When they slip up, they carry on, don't they? They get up and they just carry on the dance. They don't just cut and stop.
Yeah.
They'll get up and just go again. I think that's a nice way of relating it. It is a bit like a performance. You do a trick, it might not work, but you get to a certain level where if a trick doesn't work, you haven't fallen off, you've just kind of like stepped off your board, and you haven't fallen to the ground unless you're really trying hard.
Yeah.
And you can just carry on.
So comparing it again to dancing and Strictly as well, where they get points and they get judged. There's an element of perfection, the element of getting everything right to the T, to the indented feet. But in skating, did perfection and getting it right play a part in your learning, or did you see it on the skate park?
Definitely at first.
At first, okay. Well,
I think when everyone starts something, you have this idea of what you want out of it, or what you want the outcome to be. You have this ideal version of it, and when you first start learning a trick, you have it in your head. You're like, oh well, I've seen somebody else do it like this, and I want to do it exactly like them. But everybody's body's completely different.
Yeah,
we all have our own different anatomy. We're all riding different skateboards. They're all tuned up slightly differently. Like, we're all skating on different ground. We're in different environments. All these things play a part. So it might be a really windy day, and I might like pop an ollie, and I might go pretty high because the wind has kind of scooped underneath the board and helped me a little bit.
Yeah.
But on another day, I might do it, and I might fall off because I'm just not paying attention, or I'm slipping with my feet. When you first start doing it, like say you have this ideal and you think it's going to go that way, but when you really start to get into it, you just realize that you do it your way. Somebody else could tell you how to do it, but realistically, it's just not how it's going to work. You're gonna fall off, and you're gonna be like, okay, maybe I need to place my foot in this other position, and that works, and you're like, oh wow, I've discovered something. Okay. Yeah,
no, that makes sense. In the external factors stop it from being perfect, which you've recognized, which is almost like a process of realization that comes with time and experience. But taking those external factors out, you can't use them as an excuse almost.
You caught me.
Yeah, the perfection for many, like skill based, plays a big part in getting good. Like people kicking free kicks like 100 times, and they have the thing about you've got to study to get really good at something. You've got to do like 10,000 hours, which takes half a lifetime.
I think it's nonsense.
You think it's nonsense?
I think that's absolute nonsense.
Okay,
like
interesting.
And this is purely opinion based. But
go for it.
Somebody could spend 10,000 hours of doing something. Does not make them an expert, because if they're doing those 10,000 hours, quote unquote wrong, they're gonna have 10,000 hours worth of experience that doesn't mean anything.
Okay. Quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity, exactly.
Yeah. I think that's the 10,000 hours theory. I don't know it in detail, and I'll have to look into it a bit more. But it's just that as an attempt to try and quantify how much you need to do to become very, very good at something. Because no one really knows.
Yeah, it's a generalization, really.
It's a generalization, and 10,000 hours is hard to equate because no one can imagine 10,000 hours.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah, that is a lot of time. It's like 3.5 years or something like that. I don't know. Maybe less than that. Maybe less than that. But it's okay. But I think I don't want you to avoid this thing about perfection, because I think perfection does play a part in motivating people, but also demotivating people, because you want to get it right, and when you get it right, you can then show it off. There's two different types of people who realize if it's a little bit rough around the edges, that's fine, at least you've managed to do it. But some people will not do anything until it's absolutely pinpoint, right on top. In a spectrum, where do you think you lie? Not sure.
That is a not sure, but I think that's because I bounce from one to the other.
But you're a technical person, though. You do sound engineering, podcasting, and things like that. Generally, technical people are. You look for the right answer, right?
Yeah, I think I try and kind of switch off when I'm doing things like that. When I'm skating, it's more for me, sort of like getting out of my own head sort of thing. Okay. I'm just focusing on skating. But I do hear what you're saying, and it is very much it's like a spectrum. Like, it depends who's kind of around you at that point. If there's nobody around, if I can tell that nobody is watching me whatsoever, if I'm in a room by myself, like, I'm not gonna care what I do. Like, I'm just gonna keep doing it.
Okay, so that takes you back then, I think, to showing off. And this is not just analysing yourself here, it's trying to just look at the concepts of perfectionism and showing off, because they're interesting areas, and they're quite related to skating here. Is that if you're only trying to be perfect when other people are watching, which is a big thing, right? Loads of people relate to that, loads of people. But then when you're not being watched, you don't mind. I think a lot of people are like that. Do you not think?
Yeah, I'd agree with you. Yeah, I'd definitely agree with you.
But then some people aren't. Some people are even perfectionists when they're on their own. But then that's what makes them allow them to be great, allow them to get great at something. Often
Yeah.
they struggle in other areas when they can't control it, but that allows them to become great.
Yeah. I think there's also this sort of it can work the other way around as well. Like if you know somebody's watching,
What do you mean?
you don't want to be perfect because you don't want to stand out.
Okay.
There's
So
also the flip.
So that's quite interesting look at it, because my assumption in general, and I get this feeling sometimes when I know I'm being watched, or there is someone new in the room that is watching me and I need to give a first impression. I get this feeling of like I'm performing on stage, and sometimes I like it, sometimes I'd much rather not have it, but most of the time I'm like, okay, just performing. It's almost like ridiculous, like I'm literally doing things exaggerated, like I know someone, but there's a high chance they're not even watching.
Do you feel like you're slowing down a little bit just to make sure that people are really following?
Maybe slowing, not so slowing down, but I definitely feel a change. But that's when obviously someone is watching and I want to show off and I want to be hopefully the best version of myself. I want to say the right things. Sometimes I go too far and try to sound like I know what I'm on about, but that's a whole nother issue that
It's what this podcast is about,
I've been
mate.
working on, and I'm a lot better than I was when I was younger. But that is what I always thought, showing off and being good at something that's what I always assumed is the norm. But you're saying here, and completely changing the view of this, is that you said that you didn't want to look good. So say that again.
Yeah, so I think this depends on kind of the situation or kind of the mood that you're in. Like if people are watching me, for example, sometimes I'll be like, all right, cool, I've got this. Like I can give a bit of a performance. And other times it's like, no, I don't want to do this. Not in front of people because I'm not confident enough right now.
Because not confident. Okay. Can you break that down? Trying to understand. I'm trying to understand it.
I mean, obviously, confidence comes from like self-belief.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. So, like, if you believe if I believe I'm good at doing an ollie, for example.
Yeah.
And the version of it being good in my head is the same as me physically doing it.
Yeah.
I'm probably going to have confidence doing it. But I don't know. I might be having an off day, so my confidence is going to be low, and then I don't want to perform or do anything in front of people because it's like, all right, don't watch me fail, please.
So you don't. So that comes from a fear of failure.
Oh, definitely.
Okay, so the fear of failure drives the desire to get out of the situation where you have to perform. You're being watched. But the question I have is, you said earlier about you're trying not to be perfect when people are watching. So let's say you have no choice. You have to perform an ollie. Someone's watching, you're skating. You can't just suddenly stop skating because, I don't know, you're already going. You're already moving. And then you look to the left, almost like a TV show. Look to the left and your girlfriend's there, your family's there, your granddad's there, your auntie and uncle, your cousin. Everyone is there suddenly.
Yeah.
And you go, well, I'm supposed to be doing an ollie now. I can't stop now because it's too late. I suppose you could. But in this hypothetical situation, if someone was in this position who they don't feel like they've got it perfect, they have to perform, what is motivating them to not be perfect? Because you said there's a spectrum, there's a subset of people who would try to actually deliberately fail that.
I think it's not caring what other people think. Just stop caring what other people think.
So they don't care what they think. So they fail.
If for example I fall off my board,
yeah,
in front of a load of people,
yeah,
who don't know me, the thing I tell myself is, I'm probably never going to see these people again.
Okay.
Ever. So if they laugh at me, okay, it's a bit humiliating. It's like a random person laughing at you. But in the grand scheme of things, how many other people have done that? Okay,
so you won't see them again, but to take it back, it's your family. You will see them again.
Oh, it changes.
But I'm trying to figure out, because you brought a really interesting view there. Some people deliberately aren't perfect when someone's watching them because they don't like to show
showing
off.
off.
They don't like showing off.
Yeah, I think it's this like not wanting to stand out.
Not wanting to stand out. Okay.
Because when you stand out, you instantly become like, I don't know, not center of attention, but people focus on you, right?
Okay, the things that come with being focused on, and I get it. I understand. I think I've met people like this, but I've never really broken it down in this way. So that's that's really interesting, and I'm glad you brought that up. So perfectionism, showing off in skating is a big thing. And how does this? Last thing I want to talk about is how does this relate to anything you've done in the past? Like you grew up. Remind me, you grew up in, and what did you didn't do any skate? You did a bit of skating when you were younger? No,
a little bit. When I was really young, I kind of dabbled. I got given like a little, like the little kids skateboards. Yeah, where they're not even really big enough to put your feet on. And
was that the first time you felt these sort of things, or you had to go through these sort of showing off?
No. I used to be in bands when I was younger. When I was like,
what were you playing?
I was playing drums.
Drums.
But it's nice because you can sit at the back, you can do your performance, but nobody's really watching you.
But they can hear you.
They can hear you, which is fine. You make an audio slip up.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's gone.
It's part of the deal.
Yeah, but if someone's seen you do it, it's a bit more intimate.
Interesting. So you're definitely in that spectrum that people can try and relate to, where there's people that don't want to go on stage, they don't want to be centre of attention, they don't want to be seen as they don't want to give any attraction to where they or draw any attention to where they stand based on their skill. So all the over to being in front of people and showing off, and even if you're not that good at it, that's the other side of the spectrum. You want to be able to show your skill. You want to be on the stage, but at the back.
Yeah.
You're still on the stage. Some people don't even go on the stage. Most people don't go on stage, but you want to be on the stage, but at the back.
I think
it's quite a good analogy.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way of summing it up. Because I like, don't get me wrong, I quite like showing off, not in the arrogant sense of like, oh wow, look at me. But I like to show off that I can do something.
So this is where I get confused because a little bit because I can tell that you enjoy showing off, but then when you do some things, you don't really care about what happens, and you're not trying to show off. So it's that two things exist but you're jumping, as you said, you jump between the spectrum, and I'm sure lots of people are similar to that, and it's okay to like. Because I'm trying to break down why, and I think we said there is if you know you're being watched or not, and who you're being watched by.
Yeah, I think.
Can you remember any moments in when you were playing music that you were nervous, particularly nervous?
Every single gig, I have huge stage fright.
Throw that in.
Huge stage fright. I mean, I've been running training sessions at work recently, and I've really had to pump myself up before going into the room, because I know there's going to be people there expecting me to do something for them.
In front of how many?
I don't know, like, not many people turn up to these training sessions, unfortunately. So, like, the maximum I've had is like 8 people.
Virtually or in person?
In person.
In person, okay. And
but these are all people that I've never really met before in person, so it's basically like 8 strangers sat down watching you.
And that pump up of getting ready for it, is that because you've got that anxiety, that stage fright that you had when you were younger that just...
Yeah, I mean, the stage fright that I had when I'm younger, well, when I was younger, it stayed. I still have it. I don't think it's anything that will really go away. You just kind of get used to it. I know how to deal with it.
How long does it last when you do your training sessions? Because if I look at my thoughts on this, and I know it varies, it's definitely another thing that's on a spectrum of people. For me, I get worried or get anxiety about before any performance in front of anyone. But you start to enjoy it a little bit. The waiting is annoying. Like, come on, can we go now? Can we start?
The
how long we got?
anticipation.
Anticipation is really annoying. But once you're in it, you let the adrenaline just drive you through it. You get settled, and once you're settled, you just perform and you go for it. And that's how. And I quite enjoy it. Whether it's teaching in a class or talking in front of a whole load of people, or talking in front of 120, 50, 200 people, whatever. The anticipation is a bit annoying, but once you're on, the adrenaline is so good, it's a kick. I enjoy it, but I know I'm different. Some people would not even go near that.
Yeah, and what I would say to people that haven't experienced it, just try it. Just jump in the deep end, because you'll never know if you enjoy it or not unless you do it. And that goes for everything. So like these training sessions I'm doing, I told my manager, I was like, I don't really feel confident enough to do it. Like, luckily I've the content. I have the gift of knowledge in whatever it is that I'm training. So realistically, I'm the most knowledgeable person.
Yeah, you know the content. It's just the delivery you're
anxious about. And it's anxious. It's the anxiety of being judged, or maybe saying something wrong, and then someone coming to you with a question, you can't answer it, or all of these different things go through in your head. And I think for me personally, the only thing I do to kind of turn that off is I get in there like just before I'm supposed to start.
Yeah.
So I've got no sort of thinking time. I go in, I sit down, and I make a joke to kind of relax myself.
Okay, so you use humour at the beginning. That's quite common, isn't it?
Yeah, I think a lot of people try to make themselves relax in different ways. Like, what would you do?
So it depends on the situation. This goes back, like performing in front, let's say a class training session. Making humour is important because it helps people learn, helps people relax themselves. But some situations wouldn't allow humour straight away, like if you're in like the armed forces or something like that. But yeah, humour is a good example, but you have to be careful, because if you take the mickey out of someone, you'd be like, oh god, you can't do that.
Well placed humour.
Being taken seriously if it's on a serious topic, if it's something like, I don't know, mental health or something, or something terrible, you can't dive in, like something about Ukraine or the war or something. You can't dive in with a joke. You just can't.
Oh yeah, because it would be ill placed.
But so I quite enjoy it. I've learned and even studied, adapted the different sort of structures of how to structure certain presentation skills and how to deal with certain topics. And it's still something I'm learning and trying to become as the best I can at it. But yourself, actually, I didn't really answer your question. My most important thing is getting the other people talking. And it's the same thing what I've done at work, and try and teach people at work of when they're dealing with people externally and they're nervous, and I'm doing like mock calls and I'm trying to get them up to speed. It's try and get the other person to talk, because it allows you to not have to talk, calm down, lower your blood pressure, lower your heart rate, because you don't have to talk, and it allows you to just listen, and allows you to think of the next question by listening. Because when you're talking such a rate, you have no time to think of a question, and you're focused so much on what you're saying, you're getting sort of wrapped up, and you forget there's another person listening.
Yeah.
And you get nervous and you build yourself up. But if you're not expected to talk, you can the attention's not on you anymore. So my advice is always questions, ask about them, figure out who they are, where they're from, how do they have anything in common. Simple things like, if there's 8 strangers in a classroom, you go, oh, so you're from here, or where are you from? Oh, is anyone else from Birmingham? Oh yeah, you two are from Birmingham. You went to the same school. And they hadn't even talked, they haven't even realised.
Yeah.
I've had that quite a few times, and that's because, and 5 minutes in, no one knows really much about me, but everything's like, suddenly everyone's friends again. And I realise that's what I'm actually, at work and things like that, I'm actually quite good at that, helping other people find what they have in common, and being a facilitator. And that's what I do to try and I deal with my bit of anxiety, and that's my sort of go-to technique.
So that's kind of your way of calming yourself down.
If the situation is screaming awkward, like this is going to be awkward, or it's a situation where it's very like don't really know. To be honest, I don't really know the content. Let's say, then yeah, that's a good way. But yeah, so that's. But I didn't. You said you make a joke. How long does that last for? That sort of. This is me trying to.
I mean, it's not always necessarily a joke. Well, it's more just going in with a jokey sort of like attitude and be like, oh, all right, guys, here we go. Let me just turn the screen on, and I'll turn the screen on and be like, oh, I bet you didn't know how to do that. Like, just make it really light of the situation that we're all here we're all here for the same thing.
And how long does it take to sort of calm down, to use a crude word, basic word there?
You're gonna hate me again because I'm gonna say it depends. Like if
fine.
I know there's somebody, quote unquote, like pretty important there,
yeah,
I'm going to be bricking it, and I'm going to be really careful about the way I present everything, and I'll probably be nervous throughout. I'll probably calm down to some degree, and I'll be okay. But otherwise, I'm like, all right, cool.
Yeah,
everyone's on the same level. I don't need to perform for anyone.
Have you ever had a situation where you're having to perform like that, and someone comes along like an assessor or like the boss's boss?
Thankfully, no. But today I did a training session. I went in, and one of the managers of the people that were there was also with them. And I was like, okay, I need to get this right, because they're going to then report back to their team.
And this is an external client or external?
No, this is all internal. It's all internal. So it's a lot less stressful than I'm making out, because it's all internal people.
This is the whole point. We're looking at, I don't know how we've come onto this about sort of performing and the stress of performing in front of others. But I think again it comes with exposure and practice and time.
Yeah.
So like makes me think back to my cadet days where we did a lot of teaching and we did some courses with the army to learn how to teach and structure things according to the army manual and structure lessons exactly the same way. I think I can sort of remember part of it already still. And to pass those weekend courses or whatever, you had to have an assessor in there and teach the other people a lesson example or something like that, but there'd be someone in the room, and then when you did teaching to get your qualifications and other extra qualifications, there'll be someone else in the room, almost like how teachers become teachers. You have that person in the room as an assessor, and you get used to that stress. And then when you do things like musical grades, you have an assessor, like being judged basically very evidently and clearly, visually. It's not a very nice feeling, but the more you do it, I think the better you get.
And I think swinging that back round to how we got onto this with skating and like any sort of like performative sport or anything that kind of requires some sort of performance, it's exposure. The more you do it and the more you practiced in it, the more comfortable you're going to feel next time you go into it.
It's definitely one factor, because even if you look at like the Olympics or even like Strictly Come Dancing final, the Olympic final, the best of the best, even after hours and hours and many competitions, people can still fall at the last hurdle because of just the situation itself.
Even they probably still feel the same nerves as they did on their very first race.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember there was a musician. Was it a musician that said, I still feel a bit nervous before every gig, and if I didn't, I'm doing it wrong. I don't want to say it was Ed Sheeran, it was someone else, but they said that.
Whoever it was, they're right.
Yeah, you want to be a little bit, oh God, that's going to annoy me, who said that. But yeah, you want to feel a little bit nervous before every gig, because that means you still enjoy it. because if you're numb to it, too much exposure, or as we said, our theory there, then maybe you need to stop. But don't know what else could it be? What else could it be there? Getting used to it. Should we go back to the spectrum idea of different people? Some people will always be nervous no matter how many times they do it.
Yeah.
Some people will never do it because they just can't ever bring themselves to do it.
Yeah.
Some people will, over more and more exposure, will become numb to it, and that's where they start to fall short, perhaps.
I think that's where arrogance kind of comes in.
Arrogance comes in, yeah. They're looking for the next, almost thrill seekers, almost. Not to sort of bundle them in, but yeah, I think overall, again, I think this is where what I'm learning, and this is why talking to other people is so important, rather than me just trying to theorize it in my own head. Everyone is different when it comes to these things, like, as you said, showing off, performing in front of other people, the idea of perfection. I think what's very clear is that I have no idea how to skate, but you do. So I'm still learning. I appreciate you, and I thank you for talking about it.
No, thank you.